In 1833, Mexican soldiers digging a pit for a powder magazine at Lompoc Rancho in California discovered a 12-foot-long sarcophagus. Inside was the skeleton of a giant man, surrounded by carved shells, large stone axes, and sheets of quartz with symbols. The giant skeleton was notable for having a double row of teeth in both the upper and lower jaws. Amateur archaeologist Ralph Glidden conducted excavations on Catalina Island in Southern California between 1919 and 1930. He claimed to have found a total of 3,781 skeletons on the Channel Islands. Legends of giant-sized people exist in various cultures, and despite mainstream science often dismissing them, there is some evidence to suggest that these giants may have actually existed. Remains of giants have been discovered not only in the United States, but also around the world. So, giants were present in the past, but why are they not present today? What caused their extinction, and why aren't these incredible findings displayed in museums or mentioned in school history books? Well, it's because giants' existence and extinction have been deliberately covered up. Throughout human history, stories and legends about giants have been a common theme in various cultures. These ancestral giants have been mentioned since ancient times. In the Old Testament, specifically in the book of Genesis, there's a reference to giants known as the Nephilim.
The giants were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown.
Some interpretations suggest that the Nephilim were born when angels, known as the sons of God or fallen angels, had relationships with mortal women. This resulted in the birth of extraordinary beings who were either seen as famous heroes or giants. The Book of Enoch, part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and ancient Indian texts both mention giants known as Nephilim, who existed before the Great Flood. Although the Genesis account does not provide extensive details on this concept, the Book of Enoch talks a lot about Nephilim. But in this book, the Nephilim are described as scary monsters who caused a lot of trouble. They would eat everything in their path and even attack people, animals, and other creatures. They acted more like wild beasts than civilized beings. In the book of Samuel, we're introduced to a famous giant named Goliath. The story of Goliath starts with two armies getting ready for war. The Philistines, who have a big warrior named Goliath, challenge the Israelites to send someone to fight him. The Israelites are scared because Goliath is very strong and tall. The leader of the Israelites, King Saul, should have fought Goliath, but he's afraid. Then a young shepherd boy named David volunteers. David's not a strong fighter, but he has faith in God and believes he can win. David tells King Saul about how he protected his father's sheep from dangerous animals with God's help. He thinks that God will help him defeat Goliath too. King Saul reluctantly agrees to let David fight, but he tries to give David his armor, which is too heavy. David decides to fight without armor and chooses 5 smooth stones from a brook. He takes his sling and goes to face Goliath. Goliath makes fun of David, thinking he's no match for him. But David trusts in God and confidently says that he will win and kill Goliath. He throws a stone from his sling, hitting Goliath in the forehead and killing him. Goliath, the most notorious giant in history, is said to have been around 8 feet tall, although some sources claim he may have been over 11 feet tall. Goliath could have been descended from a group called the Anakites or Anakim, who were believed to be descendants of the Nephilim. Giants have been mentioned in history even before that, with the ancient Sumerians having their own race of giant-like gods, Anunnaki. Ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts from 2124 BC provide information about the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were a race of extraterrestrial beings from the planet Nibiru. Well, Nibiru's not a faraway planet in another galaxy, but actually exists in our own solar system. It comes close to Earth every 3,600 years. The idea of an extraplanet was initially seen as pseudoscience, but now many scientists believe that there is indeed an additional planet or a large object in the outer regions of our solar system. Scientists at NASA have referred to a hidden planet as Planet 9 or Planet X. Planet Nibiru faced environmental problems due to a crack in its ozone layer, causing global warming and harming crops and animals. The Anunnaki found that gold dust could slow down the crack's growth, but Nibiru lacked gold, leading to food shortages and a rebellion. They went on space expeditions and eventually discovered Earth. At first, the Anunnaki named the planet Kai, but it later became known as Earth. They chose Mesopotamia as the location to build a magnificent city called Eridu. After 7 days of hard work, the Anunnaki completed the construction of Eridu, extracting gold through difficult labor and enslaving an alien race called the Igigi. Over time, Nibiru was restored, but the Igigi rebelled against their enslavement. A war erupted between the Anunnaki and the Igigi, with the Anunnaki emerging victorious. However, they realized that continued forced labor would only lead to more rebellions. As a solution, they decided to create a new race that was weaker in strength but capable of work and learning. To create a new race, the Anunnaki used advanced technology and the womb of a female primate living in the forests. However, the results were terrifying, giving rise to monstrous creatures like Cyclops, Gorgons, and two-headed giants. This method of conception failed. They then turned to the essence of a male primate, modifying its DNA and inseminating it into an Anunnaki woman's womb. After several months, the first human baby was born, named Adamu. He had a reddish-tinted skin and was smaller than the Anunnaki babies. He also had a longer lifespan compared to most humans. They also created a woman named Hiva for procreation purposes. Humans worshipped their gods, the Anunnaki or giants. The Anunnaki were seen as superior beings compared to tiny humans. Over time, humans flourished and developed skills. The beauty of human women attracted the Anunnaki, resulting in forbidden relationships. Enki, the king of Eridu, fell in love with a human woman, and they had a son named Arapa. Humans grew smarter, but also inherited the Anunnaki's greed for gold and power, resulting in violence. Among humans, CAIN and ABEL served the Anunnaki, competing for their favor. Out of jealousy, CAIN killed ABEL, becoming the first human murderer. Humans wandered the world without purpose. Surprisingly, some Anunnaki and Igigi secretly formed romantic relationships with humans, leading to extraordinary offspring. These children, seen as half-gods, became famous giant legends like Gilgamesh, Hercules, Perseus, and Samson. However, the offspring of the Igigi with humans were bestial and evil giants, forever known as nephilim. These nephilim often lived in hill caves and would attack human dwellings, causing trouble for the Anunnaki. Despite the absence of Anunnaki support, humans flourished and built their own cities. Indeed, the Holy Quran mentions how giant Adam was and the interaction between Adam and the angels.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that when Allah, God, created Adam, He made him very tall, about 60 cubits tall. Allah told Adam to greet a group of angels and listen to their response, as it would become the standard greeting for his descendants. Adam greeted the angels by saying, "Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you." And the angels replied by saying, "Assalamu alaika wa rahmatullah, peace and Allah's mercy be upon you." Those who enter paradise will resemble Adam in appearance and size.
This is how the expression became part of the greeting. Long ago, according to ancient tablets, when a planet called Nibiru passed close to our solar system, strange things happened. The sun had dark spots and colorful waves filled the sky like beautiful lights. These events signaled that Earth's protective magnetic field was weakening. As a result, the ice caps melted, causing a massive flood that covered the entire planet. The Anunnaki, the ancient beings, escaped the flood by boarding their flying ships and returning to Nibiru with their precious gold. On Earth, great cities were destroyed and sank underwater. Only a few humans survived, and they had to rebuild everything from scratch. Many cultures tell stories about this great flood, and recent discoveries suggest that such an event actually took place. As for evidence of giants, there have been findings that support their existence. Many Native American tribes have stories about a race of giants who were taller, stronger, and sometimes crueler than ordinary people. The Choctaw tribe talks about the Nahulo, giants who ate human flesh. The Choctaw fought and killed these giants, pushing them westward. The Paiute tribe settled in Nevada and passed down a legend about red-haired giants called the Sitka or the Thule Eaters. Thule is a type of strong reed that grows in swamps. These giants supposedly arrived in Nevada on rafts made of Thule. However, the giants didn't just eat Thule. Like the Nahulo, another group of giants, they also consumed humans. The Sitka giants waged war against the Paiute and neighboring tribes. Despite the brave resistance from the human tribes, the giants were too powerful. The giants would often capture people in battle and eat them. After years of conflict, the tribes united, and this shifted the balance of the war. In the final battle, the redhead giants were forced into a cave. The tribes blocked the cave entrance with sticks and brush, setting it on fire. The last remaining Sitka giants either suffocated or burned alive in the cave. In 1912 and later in 1924 and 1929, Lovelock Cave was excavated, revealing surprising findings. The entrance showed signs of intense scorching, indicating a long and hot fire. Inside the cave, an enormous handprint was discovered on one of the walls. Over 10,000 artifacts were recovered, including human bones with the signs of marrow removal, suggesting cannibalism. Among the findings was a sandal that could fit someone with a size over 8 feet tall. Clothing too large for an average-sized person was also found. During the initial excavation, 2 mummified giants were reported, a nearly 7-foot-tall female and a nearly 9-foot-tall male, both with red hair. Additionally, in a dry lake bed near Lovelock Cave, 2 giant skeletons were said to have been found, according to a 1931 article in a Nevada newspaper. Giants were not only discovered in the Nevada desert, but also across the entire country from coast to coast. It appears that long before the arrival of native tribes, America was a land inhabited by giants. West Virginia is known for having many old mounds. Those mounds are believed to be thousands of years old, but nobody knows why they were built. The largest among these mounds measures over 200 feet in diameter and stands over 60 feet tall. The Grave Creek Mound, the biggest conical mound in the world, was excavated in the early 1800s in West Virginia. According to reports, skeletons measuring up to 8 feet tall were found within the mound during the excavation. In later years, the Smithsonian Institution conducted an excavation of the Creole Mound in South Charleston, West Virginia. This mound was believed to be from the same time period. During the excavation, a total of 13 skeletons were discovered. Interestingly, 10 of these skeletons were arranged in a spoke-like pattern around a central skeleton, which stood at a height of 6 feet 8 inches. And in the 1950s, the Cresap Mound in Marshall County was excavated by Don Dragoo from the Smithsonian. Inside the mound, 54 human skeletons were found, and one of them measured over 7 feet in length. Throughout the years, there have been reports of other unusually large human skeletons or bones discovered in West Virginia and neighboring states. However, none of these specimens have been preserved until today. Some people believe that the Smithsonian Institution covered up evidence of giant skeletons for unknown reasons. In 1930, Professor Ernest Sutton from Salem University excavated 2 mounds in Doddridge County. It's said that he discovered human skeletons measuring 7 to 9 feet tall, and the artifacts were reportedly handed over to the Smithsonian. However, the skeletons were allegedly stolen and have since gone missing. In 1868, there was a report about quarry workers finding the remains of a 10-foot-tall skeleton along the Mississippi River. However, a few days later, the bones mysteriously disappeared. There are rumors that they were secretly taken on a late-night train and sold to a circus. In 1897, the Worthington Advance newspaper documented the Smithsonian Institution's excavation of the Eastern Mounds in Iowa. The paper quoted John Wesley Powell, the director of the Bureau of Ethnology.
It is a matter of official record that, in digging through a mound in Iowa, the scientists found the skeleton of a giant who, judging from actual measurement, must have stood 7 feet 6 inches tall when alive. The bones crumbled to dust when exposed to the air.
In 1932, archaeologist George Fisher conducted an excavation of a mound located in Union Township, Washington County, Pennsylvania. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette,
one of the skeletons discovered in the mound measured 7 feet 5 inches in length, indicating the immense stature of these individuals. Not only the men, but also the remains of women and children exhibited remarkable size. These ancient people likely had robust, primitive facial features, as evidenced by their heavy-boned skulls, massive jaws, and strong teeth capable of tearing meat apart.
George Fisher said the bones were put on display at a local museum, but they're no longer anywhere to be found. Over the past 2 centuries, there have been over 1,000 documented accounts of skeletons measuring 7 feet or taller found throughout North America. These reports have been recorded in various sources, including newspaper articles, town and county histories, letters, scientific journals, diaries, photos, and Smithsonian ethnology reports. The Smithsonian Institution is mentioned numerous times as the receiver of these gigantic skeletons from all across the United States. However, if these accounts are true, where are the bones? There are accusations that the Smithsonian Institution have kept hidden artifacts and books in their possession. These alleged secret treasures, which could be controversial, are believed to be suppressed to protect the reputation of the Catholic Church or the official historical narrative. The Smithsonian is accused of actively suppressing knowledge instead of sharing it over the past century. In the Midwest, ancient mounds and pyramids revealed evidence of an advanced culture that had connections with Europe. Some of these mounds contain burials of exceptionally tall individuals, often with armor, swords, and valuable items. Disturbingly, there's evidence suggesting that the Smithsonian deliberately covered up and lost important archaeological relics. There are many reports suggesting that the Smithsonian Institution received and was involved in excavating giant remains, but the actual skeletal material appears to have gone missing. If these remains were of normal size, where's the evidence to support this claim? Archaeologists in Bulgaria have made a discovery in downtown Varna, finding what they describe as a huge skeleton, and also they found artifacts. Local news websites report that the size of the bones is impressive and indicates that they belong to a very tall individual. However, the exact height of the skeleton has not been disclosed by the archaeologists. Initial laboratory testing suggests the artifacts were about 6,500 years old, but here's where things get controversial. Despite laboratories dating the objects to 4,500 BC, the Smithsonian and other authorities dismissed the findings as fraudulent. The Smithsonian claimed that the artifacts were only 30 years old and declared the entire discovery to be a hoax. In 2013, a remarkably tall skeleton dating back to 1600 BC was discovered in Santa Mare, Romania. The skeleton measured over 2 meters in height, which was highly unusual for that time and location. However, there is controversy surrounding this finding, and it's been suggested that there may have been misquotations or mistranslations in the reporting of the discovery. When exciting discoveries like the ones in Romania, Bulgaria, also in Ecuador and Georgia hit the news, they became a national sensation. However, with all the attention, there were also hoaxers and scammers trying to take advantage of the situation. In 1882, there was a story about enormous skeletons found in a lake bed near Cincinnati. The problem was that it turned out to be a hoax. The person who claimed to have made the discovery was charging people to see the skeleton on his property. Whether it was a real skeleton or not, it was only about 5'8", so definitely not a giant. The newspapers around the world ran the story without fact-checking, as they often did during that time. As more stories about giants appeared in the news, it became difficult to separate fact from fiction, because the newspapers would publish every story without verifying its accuracy. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, during your visits to Toledo, Ohio, you would have seen signs along the highway offering the opportunity to see giants that farmers claimed to have discovered. These giants were put on display for a small fee, usually around 25 or 50 cents. You could explore their whole skeletons, bones, artifacts, and other items while enjoying refreshments. You even had the chance to take photos of yourself standing next to these giant exhibits. Since the early days of the internet, there have been photos circulating of people supposedly excavating sites with giant bones. While some of these pictures are pretty cool, it turns out that most of them are actually from a Photoshop contest, so they're not real, just creative and imaginative edits. As time goes by, more evidence is emerging that supports theories of alternate history, including the existence of giants in the past. However, mainstream media often tries to prevent this kind of news from spreading. If the mainstream media keeps getting things wrong, it raises questions about the trustworthiness of their articles. While we may have some ideas about why giants may have existed, modern researchers may have to wait until the controversies surrounding archaeological discoveries are resolved before reaching definitive conclusions. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. My name is El Laureate. If you enjoyed our interaction or gained any knowledge, I would greatly appreciate it if you could support me by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. Your engagement truly means a lot to me. If there's a particular story or topic you'd like to explore or learn more about, please let me know in the comments.